Welcome to Daily Reflections. My name's Corey. I'm here with Bianca and Brandon.
Hello.
And let's get started with Just For Today, February 6th. I can't, we can. We had convinced ourselves that we could make it alone and proceeded to live life on that basis. The results were disastrous, and in the end, each of us had to admit that self-sufficiency was a lie. That's from Basic Text, page 59. I can't, but we can. This simple but profound truth applies initially to our first need as NA members. Together we can stay clean, but when we isolate ourselves, we're in bad company. To recover, we need the support of other addicts. Self-sufficiency impedes more than just our ability to stay clean. With or without drugs, living on self-will inevitably leads to disaster. We depend on other people for everything from goods and services to love and companionship. Yet self-will puts us in constant conflict with those very people. To live a fulfilling life, we need harmony with others. Other addicts and others in our communities are not the only ones we depend on. Power is not a human attribute, yet we need power to live. We find it in a power greater than ourselves, which provides the guidance and strength we lack on our own. When we pretend to be self-sufficient, we isolate ourselves from the one source of power sufficient to effectively guide us through life, our higher power. Self-sufficiency doesn't work. We need other addicts. We need other people, and to live fully, we need a power greater than our own. So just for today, I will seek the support of other recovering addicts, harmony with others in my community, and the care of my higher power. I can't, but we can.
Yeah, I really liked that reading. The first thing that came to mind was in the basic text where it says the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. Other fellowships have different ways of saying that, but there's really such truth to that. For so long I remember isolating, in my addiction. I didn't want to ask anyone for help because I didn't feel, first off, that anyone really wanted to help me, and then also that, they couldn't help me, and then that pride and ego, that go along with asking for help. You want to be independent, you don't want to, bother anyone, but today it's not so much like that. I did have to go through this transition when I first got sober of having to drop my pride and ego and ask for help because I didn't know how to live, I didn't know even how to do basic human things, I didn't know how to do a lot of things, going and applying for a job or, need help with food, just the basic human necessities, you have to ask for help. But then when you go on the basis of actually getting spiritual help or, just needing to talk to someone about things, that's a whole nother level of pride and ego that you have to drop.
Right.
So it's so true, we can, but I can't, we can, this is a we program. They say that all the time in meetings that, we have to do this together, and it's actually a part of the first tradition. Unity is everything. We have to be unified in all of this, because if not, we're not going to succeed. I really like that. A lot of people, when they come into this program, they have this, I guess, misconstrued concept of a higher power. And I've heard a lot of people say that their higher power are the rooms. It's the people in the rooms that really help them make it through. That's a power greater than ourselves, is a bunch of addicts coming together and helping one another. I really like this reading.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like it a lot. When I was out in my addiction, I also isolated myself. It's like I had that one person that I would use with, and no one else was allowed in that circle because I wasn't comfortable with myself, so I wasn't comfortable around other people. But when I got into the program, I had to also let down my pride and ego. I had to just completely drop it, and this reminds me a lot of my sponsor. She was the first person that I could truly trust and let out all of that negativity that I needed to let out. And I couldn't do it by myself. I needed someone else, and I needed a power greater than myself. And with the power greater than myself, I didn't really believe in God or any other higher power out there. I was confused, and I had to do it in the rooms, and I had to pray to a group of people, just something greater than myself to restore me to sanity. I like the quote from the basic text up here, because it's we can't make it alone out there. And even if we're living clean and sober and we're alone, life's gonna be miserable. It's not gonna be fun. We're not gonna be able, like, we're not going to be able to live, because without like the help of other people, like what's the point? It is a we program, you know?
So true.
And one thing that's interesting about this is, in my head, I had it that while I was out there getting high, like, I spent a lot of time isolated and alone, you know. Part of that was, you know, my decision. Part of that was everyone else's. It's not really fun to hang out with a junkie while he's getting high behind a dumpster. The thing is, if I really think about it, I actually did kind of depend on and need other people while I was getting high. There was, this is going to sound kind of weird, but there was a point where someone had to teach me how to shoot up. You know, there were some of the, like, more shadier things I did, shoplifting, things like that. I didn't come up with that on my own. Somebody showed me how to do, like, I needed help to survive that way. Eventually I, you know, lost contact with those people, whatever, but I was kind of living life on my own. Like, I had this misconstrued sense of responsibility that if I don't do it, like, my life is going to fall apart. If I don't take care of it, things aren't going to work out. And that carried over to when I got here. You know, I got to the program, I landed in the rooms, people start telling me, you know, that they think they can help me, there's ways they can do that, there's things I can do. And, you know, like, in a lot of meeting halls, I kind of read the steps off the wall. Like, okay, I get the basic concept behind those words. I think I got this. And it took a while for me to realize I can't manage my life on my own. You know, and like you guys were saying, even outside of spiritual things, I don't know how to be a person. You know, I remember the first time after getting clean, sitting down at, like, because I'd maintained a job for about a year, which was miraculous, and sitting down looking at my taxes, just thinking, like, I need an adult, you know.
Right.
Do this.
And then as I go through this process, I start learning that the whole point behind the steps, behind the program, is to build a relationship with a higher power. And the more I can depend on that higher power, the more other stuff in my life will play out, and the less responsible, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, the less responsible I am for running the world. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Kind of takes the weight off your shoulders.
And when I was out there, before I had found the program, before I had found this way to live and, like, built a relationship with a higher power, my state of being was wholly dependent on how much I could control other people. You know, I spent all this time trying to dominate situations, trying to force people to do things I wanted them to do or behave the way I needed them to behave. And when they didn't do that, when they didn't meet those expectations, they controlled how I felt.
Right.
And as soon as I turned that control over to a higher power, the way things are going to go, I feel okay.
Yeah.
Things might not go my way, but that's not my fault. That's not really my problem. You know, it's just my job to try and help those people. The more I can try and bring harmony into situations, the closer I grow to my higher power, and the easier my life becomes, because I'm not fighting the entire world. You know, our next reading comes from Daily Reflections, a rallying point. Therefore, step 2 is a rallying point for all of us. Whether agnostic, atheist, or former believer, we can stand together on this step. And that's from the 12 Steps, 12 Traditions, page 33. I feel that AA is a God-inspired program and that God is at every AA meeting. I see, believe, and have come to know that AA works because I have stayed sober today. I am turning my life over to AA and to God by going to an AA meeting. If God is in my heart and He speaks to me through other people, then I must be a channel of God to other people. I should seek to do His will by living spiritual principles, and my reward will be sanity and emotional sobriety.
Okay, so before I go into why I like this reading, I just kind of want to point out that, yes, it is a God-inspired program, but it doesn't have to be a God that you learned when you were little in church. It doesn't have to be a God that your parents crammed down your throat. It just has to be a good, orderly direction. It can be a room of people. It could be nature. It could be the ocean. It could just be so many different things. And make it yourself. Put together things you like from each religion, or just put together things like it's inspirational, it's hopeful, it's caring. Just put together things that you would like your higher power to be, and it will be. So I think that's what they're talking about when they say God. It's not necessarily like the God that you used to know that I've created a resentment to. But other than that, I really like how it says right here, I see, believe, and have come to know that AA works because I have stayed sober today. You can't just sit there and be like, okay, I like this about it, but I'm not going to do this. Like, I like this step, but I don't believe in this one. You have to do every single thing. You have to work the steps, work with a sponsor, work with other people, go to meetings, pray and meditate. You have to do absolutely everything, or it's just not going to work, point blank. Because I tried to take out little bits and things in the past, and it never worked, and I didn't understand why. And people were telling me, are you doing it all? Are you doing it all? And in my mind, yes, I was doing everything because I picked out what I liked about it. And it's just, you really have to do everything in order to stay sober. And today, I am doing everything day by day to stay sober.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm really glad that you brought up, the whole fact that it can be whatever conception of God that you want it to be. Not only am I a recovering addict and alcoholic, I'm a recovering preacher's son. So when I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I saw that word God on the wall, I automatically went to the God that I learned when I was little.
Right.
And I built these resentments before I ever even knew what a resentment was. But I'm really grateful, if you read in Bill's story, which is one of the first chapters in the big book, you see one of Bill's friends talking to him and saying, choose your own conception of God, whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be any one thing in particular. And I'm really grateful that we were given that example, and that this is a spiritual program and not a religious one.
Right.
Because so many of us come to the rooms with these preconceived notions of what God looks like. And, my sponsor told me one time, he said, the moment that God is figured out with these nice, neat lines and definitions, you're no longer dealing with God. You're dealing with someone's idea of him.
Right.
And you need your own conception. That's what's kept me sober today. Today I can call it God, but it doesn't have to be your God or your God. It can be, it's mine.
Right.
And he does speak through other people. That's what I liked in the reading. If God is in my heart and he speaks to me through other people, then I must be a channel of God to other people.
Right.
Because I think that my God can speak to me differently than your God can. But you can still benefit from what my God has to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
And like you both, I have a hard time, sometimes I have a hard time talking about God. And for similar reasons, it's still, to this day, when I hear or see the word God, I like just bristle with antagonism. I get hit with all the stuff I learned when I was a little kid, stuck in, Catholic schools, things like that. Another part of the reason I don't really like talking about God is I don't like talking about what God is to me because, to me, a God defined is a God confined.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that God is capable of doing impossible things. Like, for instance, helping me to stay sober.
Yeah.
Right.
A gentleman that, one of my grand sponsors, somewhere in that lineage, he told me the reason we use the word God is we're talking about the power by which we live. Like it mentioned in that first reading. And the way he explained it is, you know what a rose is, you know what a rose is. We can dance around that subject all day, but until one of us says the word rose, we're never going to land at the same point.
Yeah. That's good.
God speaks to me through other people. It's come to my attention. It happens a few times. It doesn't happen all the time, but I'll be going through something, and someone else, totally outside of that situation, probably totally unaware of that situation, will, they'll open up to me, they'll ask me for help about something going on in their life, and in the process of talking to them and, giving them, my opinion or any advice I can on it, has this ever happened to you guys where as you're giving someone advice, you start to realize you're telling someone what they should do with the situation going on in your life?
Yeah.
All the time.
You know? And that's part of the, and that kind of ties back into our first reading. I have to be able to open up to other people so that they and God can help me. Because things like that are going to happen, And if I go to someone with my problem, they might find themselves in that situation where they're giving me advice and realizing what they need to do with what's going on in their life. It's kind of a weird way to put it, but I'm sort of obligated to go to other people for help.
Right.
So that, they can help me and so that God can help all of us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So that's, and the more I do that, the more, I feel relatively sane and serene most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, like I've said before, life tends to be good whether I perceive it to be or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Brandon, Bianca, for being here.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining us, and join us again next week when we will be here to do more fun stuff.